I was hoping I could go longer so I wouldn't have to take any questions, but of course I will. So, and somebody, Scott or somebody, will tell me when to stop. So, 20 after. Okay. Thank you very much. I guess I should do this so people out there can hear. So, and I will repeat the questions when they're asked. So please, questions, complaints. Yes, sir.
So some of what you're talking about sounds like the ancient religion or worldview that's sometimes called animism.
Yeah.
Like it goes way back before the
Right.
time period began with. Do you see differences or?
Right. So the question is, sounds like what I'm talking about is what the axial tradition replaced, which is what we call in history the pre-axial traditions of animism or primitivism, and very powerful systems of thought in which there was a connection between humans' nature and the divine. They were all mixed up. Read some Native American spirituality, read Hindu spirituality. Elephants are goddesses. I mean, it's all wonderfully connected. And yes, I think what we're trying to do is reconnect these things, but of course with our own sensibility. So we will take some of that animistic perspective. We're going to take some modernism. Wes likes to say we need to use the tree of knowledge now to protect the tree of life, right? So that we need to take what we know and try to reattach. So I do see some connections, absolutely. Yep. Yeah, I'm going to try to be fair here. Way in the back with the hat and the sunglasses. Sure. Yep. The question is, what the heck does Whitehead mean by mentality being in everything, right? What is that mental? And what he is saying is that what the confusion of the modern world is that mentality, the idea that we humans have minds, just sprang into us and wasn't in anything else in the world. And he asks what that mentality is, and it's the ability to make choices. It's the ability not to simply be dictated by laws of physics or that sort of thing. And of course, what Darwin shows us that in fact that species are not created fixed, they're constantly changing. And it's that change which Whitehead uses to describe mentality, that what mentality is simply the opportunity to do something new and to do something different. And he says that to look at the universe is to see it constantly changing. And so that change has to be accounted for somehow. And so he uses that term mind as that moment in each pulse of a quantum burst, or our own each moment of a cell dividing. Why does a cell divide, and why does it go one direction or the other? He says, let's call that mentality. Let's call that mind. It's the thing that allows momentarily for something to change, and call the physical world that which doesn't change. So that's a quick way of, well, what he says is we can't simply say that humans become the creative forces and everything below it is instinct or everything else is just predictable by the laws of nature. We know, in fact, that nature is not predictable. Emergent properties can't be predicted. And this is a new he talks about emergent properties, and that things emerge out of non-living systems that we could not have predicted by just looking at the level below. So it's that creativity, it's that possibility of spontaneity in the universe, which of course gives us the species, which gives us plants, gives us photosynthesis, it gives us all the things that have happened in our world, in our long history. Sarah, sitting down with the...
Whitehead sounds a lot like it has a lot of intelligent design. Does he talk about that?
No, well, if he does, I haven't seen it, but I haven't read all of him. His God is not. His God is a limiting factor. It's not a director. And I think it is simply, it's sort of like Aristotle's first mover. It is something that allows things to actually occur. So it's that the world is so full of possibility that it takes some kind of force to to control it, to bring it into actuality, to turn all those choices into a couple that make sense. Yeah, I'm trying to be.
I've been inspired by people who are inspired by Whitehead for many years. When I try to read Whitehead, I just can't. Can you give us any tips? Or interpreters of Whitehead?
It's a secret society. I could show you the handshake later. Oh, well, he wants some advice on how to understand or read Whitehead. So I don't know. The first thing to understand is he was not trained as a philosopher. He was a mathematician. And he was invited by Harvard, after retirement, really, in math, to come to Harvard and be a philosopher. And so I find it amazing, in a way, that he was, if you will, an amateur, and that he wasn't trained. I would start with science and the modern world, which is, at least he's attempting to say modern science is in a pickle because it can no longer explain itself, and so it needs a new way of understanding. But so I teach at an engineering college. I teach philosophy to engineers, which who more than they need it, right? I don't. And they do. I mean, and they're, they need it. And I so these poor kids, I'm making them read Whitehead, and they look at me like, "Why are you doing this to me?" But here's what I would say, I guess. Whitehead thought that that modern science is powerful, but it leaves too much out. It leaves our own experiences out. We experience the world in color and beauty and love and all of these things, and he says we deserve an explanation for what stands behind that. And so he is trying to work his way through these ideas, and he wants this culture to be attentive to it. He wants us to ask ourselves. Basically, he wants us to do what Socrates asked the Athenians to do, is to continue to ask where these ideas come from and to keep thinking. But then what he sees in the world is a beautiful place of emergence, of emergent creativity. And so I guess I would start there. Be patient. It's funny, he'll give you a little history of something, and then he goes on with the most esoteric philosophy you could imagine, and then he just starts it and goes off to another piece of history. And so you just have to sort of know it's coming and then slow down. I guess that's all I can. And I am not a Whitehead scholar. But I think of the history of ideas as a big flea market, and I'm trying to grab things that make sense and help us see things. And so I don't say I'm a scholar, I'm reading this stuff and trying to make sense of it. But for me, putting him together with Thoreau, which I haven't seen anybody do, but maybe people have, for me has been very fruitful. So it's just to bring these things together. Balcony. Yeah, well, yes, so sorry, balcony, fair enough, yes. There you are, there are people up there. Sir. They're what, bounded?
Well, they're unbounded, like probabilities.
They are until some kind of force actualizes them, and he calls that force God. Yeah. Well, what do you think? I mean...
So does that mean that God is within all of us? If the world is like as one whole, and it's contained within us?
Well, what he wants to say is that is the world in us? How do we get God? I mean, is God in us? Is God in the world? The questioner is asking if the world is in us and we are in the world, how do we get from this to probability to things actually happening, I think? I'm not sure. But we find ourselves in this world, and it needs to be explained. And it's not a world merely of probability, because in fact things happen, right? Here we are. I mean, as you know, you're not a probability. You are an actual occasion. Here you are. You were a mere probability when your mother and father were whatever, and there you are. And then you meet people. I met Wes Jackson. I met Don Worcester. I met Strachan Donnelley, right? And boom, you bounce around like all over the place. And so you have all these potentialities, but in fact they are limited. So I don't think, I mean, modern physics gives us a crazy world of multiverses, pluriverses, I mean, all kinds of things going on. Right next to us is another universe, and excellent. I mean, I don't know. But here's this one, and here we are, and there's Kernza now. So, I mean, 35 years ago, there wasn't Kernza. That's amazing. And I'm not saying Wes Jackson is God, but... I'll let him decide. Go. Okay, I think we have about one more question. I'm going to be here all weekend, as they say. I don't know. I haven't been over here yet. I'll take two. You've been very good. Sorry, anybody else? Well, I'll talk to you later. Yes, sir.
I don't see the difference between what you said about Whitehead and David Bohm's implicit and explicit order in the unfolding of the universe.
This is what happens when ideas are in the idea sphere. I mean, they're bound. Yeah, sure. I don't know his work, and I'm not. Believe me, I am not saying.
Mechanically oriented.
What's that?
It's quantum mechanically oriented.
Quantum mechanically to David Bohm as a.
With entanglement and how everything's connected.
Yeah.
And there's a pattern that unfolds as time.
Yeah, I forget Whitehead. There are lots of writers out there that are doing this. David Bohm is one of them, right? Yeah, and Wes told me to come and talk about Whitehead, so it's. But there's so many other writers out here. There's so many other writers and thinkers, but it's going. That's what I wanted to say. This is a transformation that's going on right now, all around. You can see it in physics, you see it in biology, you see it in mathematics, see it in information theory. I'm reading Paul Davies' book on information theory. Unbelievable. It's all going on, and then we're getting the material culture too. So sir, over here. Yeah. Not in a minute, I can't. Just that for things to be the same, somehow he calls it prehension. That you and I remember our past, and he calls that apprehension. But he says everything that is a thing prehends its past. It has some kind of memory so that it can be the same thing. It can be the same thing it was just a second ago. See, this is the part you have to believe in, that there is no you sitting here stable. There's constant pulsing, vibrating changes all the time. And yet, it looks like you and me, but it's not. So all this is going on, and so he says there has to be some kind of way that next pulse is like the last pulse, and he calls that memory. So thanks, everybody.